समस्तलोकशङ्करं योगिनां हृदन्तरे वसन्तभास्करं विभुं योगिनां हृदन्तरे वसन्तभास्करं विभुं सुधाकरं कृपाकरं सुधानन्दात्मरञ्जकं मुदाकरं कृपाकरं सुधानन्दात्मरञ्जकम् ईश्वरं सजेश्वरं सुरेश्वरं महेश्वरं गणेश्वरं सजेश्वरं सुरेश्वरं महेश्वरं नमामि ॐ विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करं नमामि ॐ विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करम्। सगनानन्द सगन मातङ्गवदनानन्द सगन महादेव शिव शम्भो नन्दन महादेव शिव शम्भो नन्दन मातङ्गवदनानन्द सगन मातङ्गवदनानन्द सगन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन ईश्वर भवानी नंदन माता महेश्वरी भवानी नंदन महागणपते मंगल चरणा महागणपते मंगल चरणा महागणपते मंगल चरणा महागणपते मंगल चरणा मातङ्गवदनानन्द सगन मातङ्गवदनानन्द सगन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन ईश्वरी भवानी नंदन माता महेश्वरी भवानी नंदन महागणपते मंगल चरणा महागणपते मंगल चरणा महागणपते मंगल चरणा महागणपते मंगल चरणा मातङ्गवदनानन्द सगन मातङ्गवदनानन्द सगन आनन्द सगन आनन्द सगन। मुरलीधरा मुरलीधरा भुवनत्रया हे भुविनायका भुवनत्रया भूमिनायका हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना हीनानाभ भज भंजना हीनावना भव भय भंजना मनमोहना हे यदुनंदना मनमोहना वेदुनंदना हे माधवा हे सूदना हे माधवा हे सूदना हीनावना भव भयभंजना हीनावना भयभंजना जगन्मोहना हे जगन्नायका जगन्मोहना हे जगन्नायका हे माधवा मधुसूदना हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना नाकरा हे शररक्षका करुणाकरा हे शररक्षका मनमोहना हे यदुनंदना हे यदुनंदना हे माधव मधुसूदना हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना माधवा हे मधुसूदना हरे मानस भज रामं भज रामं भज रामं भज रामं कल्याण रामं भज रामं कल्याण रामं भज रामं कोदंड रामं भज रामं कोदंड रामं भज रामं पट्टाभिरामं भज रामं पावन रामं भज रामं पट्टाभिरामं भज रामं पावन रामं भज रामं भज रामं भज रामं भज रामं भज रामं भज रे मानस भज रामं भज रे मानस भज रामं भज रामं भज रामं भज रामं भज रामं भज रामं पांडुरंग श्रीरंग 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 सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शांति शांति शांति। Together we will chant Bhaja Govindam verses 20 to 31. भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते सम्प्राप्ते सन्निहिते काले नहि नहि रक्षति दुष्कृन्करणे। भगवद्गीता किञ्चिदधीता गंगा जललवकणिका पीता सकृदपि येन मुरारिसमर्चा क्रियते तस्य यमेन न चर्चा। पुनरपि जननं पुनरपि मरणं पुनरपि जननी जठरे शयनम् इह संसारे बहुदुस्तारे कृपया पारे पाहि मुरारे रथ्याचर्पट विरचित कंतः पुण्या पुण्य विवर्जित पंतः योगी योग नियोजित चेतो रमते बालोन्मत्तवदेव कस्त्वं कोऽहं कुत आयातः कामे जननी को मे तातः इति परिभावय सर्वमसारं विश्वं त्यक्त्वा स्वप्नविचारम् त्वयि मयि चान्यत्रैको विष्णुः व्यर्थं कोऽप्यसि मय्यसहिष्णुः भवसमचित्तः सर्वत्र त्वं वाञ्छस्य चिराद्यदि विष्णो त्वम् शत्रौ मित्रे पुत्रे बन्धौ मा कुरु यत्नं विग्रहसन्धौ सर्वस्मिन्नपि पश्यात्मानं सर्वस्रोऽसृज भेदज्ञानम् कामं क्रोधं लोभं मोहं त्यक्त्वात्मानं पश्यति सोऽहम् आत्मज्ञानविहीना मूढा ते पच्यन्ते नरकनिगूढः गेयं गीता नाम सहस्रं ध्येयं श्रीपतिरूपमजस्रम् नेयं सज्जनसङ्गे चेत्तं देयं दीनजनाय च वेत्तम् सुखतः क्रियते रामाभोगः पश्चाद्यन्तशरीरे रोगः यद्यपि लोके मरणं शरणं तदपि न मुञ्चति पापाचरणम् अर्थमनर्थं भावय नित्यं नास्ति ततः सुखलेशः सत्यम् पुत्रादपि धनभाजां भीतिः सर्वत्रैषा विहिता रीतिः प्राणायामं प्रत्याहारं नित्यानित्यविवेकविचारम् जाप्यसमेतसमाधिविधानं पूर्ववधानं महदवधानम् गुरुचरणाम्बुजनिर्भरभक्तः संसाराध्यचिराद्भवमुक्तः सेन्द्रियमानसनियमादेवं द्रक्ष्यसि निजहृदयस्थं देवम् भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते संप्राप्ते सन्निहिते काले नहि नहि रक्षति डुक्रुन्करणे We have been studying the chapter Renunciation, started in the previous class, and we are in the topic title the renunciation. What is it? What is the renunciation? In this, we have covered few top paragraphs and couple of questions, but we will have a quick revisit so that we will maintain the thought flow. So, the renunciation is the sap of Vedanta. The knowledge ultimately ripens into renunciation in the person. It is the quintessence of spirituality. Spirituality and renunciation go together. The spirit of renunciation instilled by Vedanta that paves the way, that gives the way to the enlightenment, the ultimate goal of immortality. Yet the subject of renunciation is seldom spoken of in the spiritual religious institutions. How much renunciation you have? What is the measurement or yardstick of renunciation you are having? Is this discussion is not at all encouraged in the spiritual lobbies, and the concept of renunciation is totally misunderstood in the society. The idea of renunciation is repulsed, is hated by most of the modern society and youngsters. The thought of it is dismissed by people as something which is distasteful, repugnant. The beauty and grandeur of great renunciation is turned to be an ugly caricature. That is the general misconception prevailing in the society. That is means what people think renunciation means resignation and retirement from the active world. This is the misunderstanding vast majority carry, and they think that you, if a person takes up renunciation, he has to be barefooted and bareheaded and go to retiring to Himalayas and try to pursue the recluse life and seclusion in forests and no connection with the society is the misunderstanding. This is far from the truth. The renunciation doesn't mean this. It had been so, then renunciation would be of no practical help to the people, use of the people, and only cater to the few recluses who socially disconnected and shun any form of pleasure and material comfort. That is not so. So, ironic as it may seem, renunciation is meant for the every individual to be practiced and lived by. It is meant for one and all, irrespective of whatever may be the person's age, race, religion, background, nationality, location, occupation. It is meant for one and all. It has to be practiced in your day-to-day living, in your businesses, in your homes, in your activity, in your streets, everywhere, in the din and roar of marketplace, in everyday life. It is to be practiced because that gives you solace what you are looking for life. It is the solace of life, and it will be the solace even after the death. Of the death in its true form, renunciation provides the greatest consolation to those who suffer from worldly attachment and desires. Renunciation is the crux for their remedy for their sufferings. And when it is intensified, when the renunciation is fully taken into the life, it intensified, it draws out the divinity hidden, latent in the human being, and you reach the immortality. It animates him to bring about the reintegration, reunion with the Supreme Self within, the Supreme Being which you are. Renunciation alone will take you there. It is the fragrance. Renunciation is the fragrance a spiritually developed person, evolved person releases while performing his duties and obligations in the life, he is enriched with the spiritual fragrance with the renunciation only. The sublime trait of renunciation ought not to be reduced to a weak resignation and retirement. Those equipped with this great quality stood out as the spiritual giants, spiritual stalwarts, spiritually greatest Raja Rishis are the in the past. The world is witnessed these great masters. Hence, a thorough understanding of this concept of renunciation as a human quality is of prime importance. Not only important, it is basic necessity in one's life and living. No progress, no development is possible without practicing renunciation in your day-to-day living. As you advance to higher heights of evolution, echelons of life, you drop the natural consequence of lower values. It is like a climbing the ladder. When you climb the ladder, you put the foot on the higher rung of the ladder and remove the lower leg foot from the lower rung and place it on the top and go up and up and up. This is the way you evolve. The moment you put the step foot on the top rung of the ladder stably, then you release. Similarly, renunciation is the progress in your higher and higher states of evolution. So it is a natural progression. For example, a childhood traits fall off when you become a teenager, when you enter into teens. So do your teenager passions and fascinations drop off when you become advanced to maturity of an adult. Once you become an adult, the fewer people sacrifice their teenage passions. It's just like a flower, a beautiful flower matures to fruit. The moment it matures to fruit, progresses, it converts, it grows into fruit, the petals of the flower fall away. So it is the natural growth of the flower. So you got to understand that the natural consequence of the flower. So the beautiful trait of the beautiful trait of the renunciation has been reduced to ugly caricature. Hence, one has to study and understand the renunciation as a mark of growth, a symbol of progress in life. So, for which we have to study and understand the methodic analysis to carefully grasp the clear picture of renunciation in our life. No doubt we have covered a couple of them, but we will try quickly cover those questions. The first question is, does renunciation mean isolation from society, retiring to secluded places? Is it the question? The answer is, it cannot be meaning that. If so, it would be of no use to people to practice and live by. Renunciation is an essential ingredient of religion. It is designed for every human being. Every human being can get the benefit of this renunciation and enjoy the peace and progress in life. Designed for every human being for his own benefit, for his own evolution. He needs to apply it in his day-to-day living, in all facets of his interaction interacting with the world. So, in all transactions, you must apply this great trait of renunciation. It does not mean retiring to forests, secluded places. That is the question 1. Now, question 2 is if association with the world is permissible, does renunciation then mean abstaining from individual possession and enjoyment of worldly objects and beings? Is there any taboo of abstaining? You are not allowed to contact any objects and beings. Does it mean renunciation? It cannot mean that either. So renunciation does not mean disconnect from the contacting of the objects and beings, possession and enjoyment. In the past, India was the home of many royal sages, Raja Rishis. They were kings who were highly evolved souls living a life of renunciation. King Janaka, one of the such royal sage, he ruled the kingdom, enjoyed the comforts of the royalty, yet he was a man of renunciation, rooted in the thought of the supreme self within. Never was he entangled in the affairs of the kingdom, in the world. Tradition apart, it would be impractical to allow one to contact the sense objects, but no enjoyment allowed, but not allowed the enjoyment of the pleasures therefrom. To stimulate the appetite for sensual pleasure through contact and stifle enjoyment therefrom cannot be practical. That would be far from frustrating the individual than the total abstinence. If there is no contact, it is better off total abstinence from them. Hence, there is no objection to enjoyment of sense objects. You can contact as many objects and beings, you can enjoy as many pleasures offered therefrom. There is no control, there is no restriction of the sense enjoyment. Then the third question arises. What is the third question? Then does the renunciation then mean restricted possession and enjoyment? If you are allowed to contact, you are permitted. Is there any quantum fixation, restriction, fixing limits to the quantum of your possession and extent of your enjoyment of sense objects? Does it mean that renunciation means? No, answer is no, not that, not even that. Had it been so, the practice of renunciation would merely mean following charts with fixed limits for material possession and sensual enjoyment. It's just a chart, a list of do's and don'ts. Moreover, it is not possible to fix such limits in practical life because the quantity varies from individual to individual. So whatever is excessive for one person may be insufficient for another. You may eat more food, another person may be eating less food. So you can't fix the quantum. So hence renunciation cannot be defined by such arbitrary boundaries. This truth has been highlighted in the scripture by the two extreme examples given in the Shastras. What is that? Lord Krishna was known to have kept the company of many gopis, milkmaids, yet he was acclaimed as Nitya Brahmachari, meaning perpetual celibate. So too was a sage Durvasa. He was known for freely consuming food, and he was known as Nitya Upavasi, one on constant fast. These apparent contradictions are meant to drive home the point of truth that the possession and enjoyment do not determine one's stature of renunciation. So, renunciation cannot be based on the limits of the fixed quantities of pleasure, possession, and enjoyment. You can, there is the sky is the limit. You can enjoy as much you want, you can possess as much you want, whole world you can possess and enjoy. There is no fixed limits and quantums. Then the fourth question arises. If the quantum of possession and enjoyment also is not related to renunciation, then what is renunciation? What do you mean by renunciation? What is the difference between a materialistic person who is indulgent, lost in the world, a sensualistic person who is indulging in the senses, and the renunciate, a person who is evolved, progressed, a man of renunciation? This is the crux of the problem. You have to go over the above analysis of 4 questions carefully to understand this concept and grasp to the soul. It becomes evident that renunciation is not severance, separation from the world, nor does it mean abstinence from possession and enjoyment, nor restriction of limits imposed upon quantum of possession and enjoyment. Hence, you could remain in the world amidst the people and objects and prosperity, opulence. You could acquire as much as you want, possess as much as you want, and enjoy the objects and beings without imposing any restriction or limitation, and yet practice renunciation. That is the crux of this problem. You can be a renunciate if one is allowed to enjoy all these liberties. What then does confer the status of renunciation upon an individual? On what basis then we can confer, we can tell that the person is a man of renunciation if everything is allowed? You can find that out by studying your own past experiences in life. Carefully, you got to analyze your own life to understand this concept of renunciation, what we have done earlier. In your childhood, you were attached, involved in playthings, marbles, stones, toys, trinkets. You spent your time then acquiring, enjoying, and possessing the toys and trinkets, the playthings. Now that you are grown to a teenage, to the adult, grown up, you no longer value them. As a teenager or an adult, you don't have value for those toys, trinkets, because you are grown. You treat them as trifles, valueless things. You are preoccupied with other attractions of life at that level of evolution as an adult. What are the attractions? Right now, every individual human being who is an adult caught up in these 7 toys which are grown up. What are they? Money, name, fame, power, position, status, family. These are the toys which make your joys now. You no longer value the toys. You value these name, fame, power, position, status. The childhood playthings do not hold your interest anymore. They drop off from you. You are said to have renounced them, the toys, because as a result of growth in your personality as an adult, your attachments towards other things which are adult level, what determines your dispassion towards the childhood toy interests, that is nothing but what ascertains the spirit of renunciation. Carefully, if you analyze the cause, it is your physical parting from playthings. No, not your possession or disposition or non enjoyment, nor limitation in their possession or enjoyment of the toys. You may possess them as many toys as you want, even join your children at times and play with them, enjoying playing with them, and yet claim to have renounced them because you do not treasure them anymore. You do not have any value internally because of sheer growth. You become an adult. So that makes you disinterested in the toy world. They are not worth anything to you. You no longer credit them with any merit. You just consider as valueless toys. Your interest has risen to greater heights of adult interests. As you graduate to higher heights, higher values of life, you automatically drop your interest and value for lower things. This is a law. It is a natural law. You grow out of it. You develop disinterest to the lower, interest to the higher. That spirit of inner abstraction, inner resignation is the crux of renunciation. So, thus, the renunciation follows one's growth in the personality, maturity, founded by knowledge of higher values, established in the higher values of life. The more you gain the knowledge of higher values, the lower values fall away. It is a consequence of your growth in the personality through knowledge and understanding. Just as a child became an adult, the knowledge of adulthood automatically drops the interests of the toys which a child entertains, because child is grown into an adult. So naturally the adult no longer value the playthings and toys which he was as a child has a tremendous value. So it is all based on the establishment of higher values within you, which helps you to drop the lower values. The highest value, the greatest value a human being can fix and gain is the greatest mission in life is to discover, to inquiry, to reach the supreme self, the Atman within. The God within is the highest discovery a human being can possibly fix and attain. He who has set God realization, self realization as his goal in life, pursues it with faith and conviction, has no interest for any worldly possession and enjoyment. He is not interested in any adult people currently engaged and attached to. The moment you fix the goal of the Supreme Self within, you are not interested in money, name, fame, power, position, status, family, because you no longer enjoy them, because you enjoy the self within. Pursuit of the self gives you more permanent satisfaction. So, name and fame mean nothing to you. A person who has the Supreme God, self realization is the goal and pursuing it with conviction and dedication. Wealth and power do not attract such a person. He does not get enmeshed in family affairs. Whatever may be the family affairs, he doesn't get involved. He understands the ephemeral nature, the passing nature, the temporary nature of these affairs of the world, that the world offers anything has no value. Be it wealth, be it name, be it enjoyment, or anything for that matter, he has no value at all, because his value has risen to discovery of the self within, to become enlightened. Be it wealth or enjoyment, if he needs to possess or contact them, he does it so with inner understanding of abstraction. He resigns within himself to the Supreme Self and pursuit of the self. As a result of, he contacts the name, fame, money, power, position, status like any other, but with that detached attitude, detached attachment, disinterested interest. Others may not recognize his internal mental resignation towards them, because they have tremendous value, ordinary people. Thus, renunciation could be defined as disinterested interest, dispassionate passion towards the world. He lives in the world, he lives in the sense objects, he enjoys the sense objects without limits, but still he has no value for them, because he got the value for self realization, God realization, discovery of the Supreme Self within. That makes him give no value to this world, whatever the world offers. So, thus, renunciation could be defined as a disinterested interest. He is disinterested in the world, interested in the Supreme Self, therefore, disinterested interest, but he still deals with the world, does his obligatory duties and responsibilities towards family, community, society, the world. He doesn't give up the responsibility, but with a disinterested interest. This is the renunciation definition. In Tamil, scripture refers to that state in a striking terms. Tungamal tungi means sleeping yet not sleeping, asleep yet not sleeping. So one takes this supreme stance in life when one sets the right value for the world, considers every object and being, action and emotion and perception and thought to be ephemeral, passing, fleeting. They have no permanency. He is fixed in the thought of the Supreme Self within, and all are transient. Renunciation is the insignia of spiritual growth. Renunciation is the symbol of spiritual development, emanating from knowledge of the Supreme Self, eternal Self. The more you gain the knowledge of reality, the more you become renunciate, disinterested towards the world, interest in the self. A spiritually evolved person commands a true spirit of renunciation. A spiritually evolved, developed person commands a true spirit of renunciation. He runs his family, he runs his family, friends, and relations all with love and affection. He possesses property, name and fame, enjoys the senses, name, fame, power. He enjoys everything, yet detached from them. While he goes through these experiences, his mind remains ever anchored to the Supreme Self within while enjoying the material contacts. With the mind rooted, anchored in the self, in the Atman, he understands the futility, the hollowness, the emptiness, the ephemeral, the temporariness, the shallow offer whatever the world offers, the name, fame, power, position, status, money, family, everything is passes away. Nothing stays with you permanently. He understands and feels that inner disposition, dispassion, disinterest towards the events and experiences of mundane existence. In the world, he has no interest in anything, never attaches to anything. He just uses his intellect with discretion and executes his duties and obligations. Few in the world today have a proper understanding of this great, magnificent stand of renunciation. Hardly anybody understands. The ignoramuses feign this illustrious state of being by their outward practices. By outward religiosity, they claim to be renunciates by mimicking the dress code, the ochre robes, and etc. They live in seclusion, thinking that they are renunciates, discard property and possession, leave everything, avoid sense contact, put an act of celibacy. These are all misunderstood people. With all that, their minds are replete, entertained, full of material and sensual desires. Their thoughts and desires are filled with this, but externally they show religiosity, spirituality, renunciation. They're not contacting sense objects and beings of the world. Physical restriction, it only makes them hypocritical life and suffer from repression, suppression, and frustration. They still harbor mundane values, worldly interests. Their appraisal of the world remains high. Such impersonators, such deluded people are far from removed from the state of renunciation. Renunciation is a great sublime quality of a human being, which is these wrong practitioners cannot enjoy. The true renunciation, therefore, is that capacity in you to set the right value for all that the world offers, to consider them ephemeral and inconsequential, even when you are amidst them, enjoying them, perhaps contacting them and enjoying them. This is the definition of renunciation. True renunciation, therefore, is the capacity in you to set this a right value for all that the world offers. World can offer anything, but you have a right value and understand the ephemeral nature. Consider them in ephemeral and inconsequential, even while you may be amidst them, perhaps enjoying them, contacting them. internally you have reason about them, because you have that capacity to, because you fixed a right understanding and right value, because that's a passing the above the section. So if you don't have value, then you are a recluse. If you have a full value, sorry, if you have a full value, you are attached. If you have no value, you are disconnected physically and frustrated inside. So you got to have a perfect right value for all that the world offers, and understand internally they have no consequential for your peace and bliss within you. They are having ephemeral nature, and you thoroughly experiencing fixed your interest on the higher value of the self through the knowledge of the self, and you are perhaps amidst the objects and beings, contacting them, enjoying them thoroughly. It is not at all having any problem with the practice of renunciation and state of renunciation. The above dissection of renunciation clears the general misconception of the materialist and sensualist. So a person is adjudged, a person is labeled, adjudged as a materialist or not by the value he confers upon the material wealth, regardless of the quantum he possesses. He may be a beggar or he may be a rich person, but what value he entertains for the material wealth, that determines is a materialist or not materialist. So when he understands material objects are trivial, valueless, and trifling, and valueless, and a potential or impediment for spiritual development, a potential impediment for